My parents threw a 300-guest birthday for my sister's son. When I arrived, security blocked me and said this party is for close family only. I smiled, made one call, and every guest was left in shock. The valet barely looked at me as he took my keys. Maybe it was the modest sedan, or maybe just the way I clutched the gift like it was something breakable. Either way, I didn't belong. Not here, not tonight. The entrance to the Fairmount Hotel's grand ballroom shimmered with fairy lights, and guests swept past me in tailored suits and sequined dresses. I stood for a moment at the edge of it all, watching a woman with gold heels carry a toddler wearing a monogrammed velvet blazer. Jonas liked dinosaurs, not monograms. I adjusted the bow on the wrapped box in my hands, remote-controlled helicopter bright green. I'd researched for weeks and saved for months. 10 years old deserved something special. But as I stepped forward, a hand rose. "Sorry, ma'am," the security guard said, blocking my path. "Private event. Family only." "I am family," I said, my voice quieter than I intended. "My name's Nadine Harlow. That's my nephew's birthday party." He hesitated, glanced at his clipboard. "You're not on the list." That's when I saw her Vivian appearing in the archway like she'd been summoned by the tension. Her dress was flawless, a soft lilac that cost more than my entire grocery budget last month. Her smile was effortless and fake. "Nadine," she said, tilting her head like she just remembered I existed. "What are you doing here?" I blinked. "I'm here for Jonas, his birthday." Vivian's smile didn't waver. "Didn't Mom tell you? We decided to keep it small this year. Just immediate family." Behind her, a string quartet played something elegant. Waiters in black jackets carried champagne flutes on silver trays. The guest list had to be over 300. "Small," I echoed. She touched my arm like she was offering comfort. "You understand." I didn't, but I nodded anyway, because that's what I always did. I looked past her into the ballroom. I saw my parents laughing near the cake table. I saw the world I thought I belonged to. And then I turned around and walked back to the parking lot, the gift still in my hands. I didn't cry. Not then. Instead, I sat in my car for a long time, watching the hotel's lights blur through the windshield. Then I reached for my phone, scrolled to one number, and pressed call. The ballroom windows glowed gold against the evening sky. From where I sat, I could see silhouettes dancing. Vivian twirling in heels, my parents swaying near the cake. I pressed my forehead to the steering wheel and let out a breath I didn't realize I was holding. 7 years ago, when they sold the house on Redfern Avenue, I was the one who co-signed their mortgage application. Mom said they didn't want to burden Vivian. She was still getting on her feet after grad school. I didn't ask why Vivian's grad school somehow involved a photography retreat in Santorini. Later, I covered her remaining student loans. It was only $18,000, and Mom cried when I wrote the check. "You're such a blessing, Nadine," she said, pressing her hand over mine. "Vivian just needs a little room to breathe." Then came Jonas' summer camp. "Just until her reimbursement check clears," Dad promised. That reimbursement never came. I paid again the next year. And the next. I used to think keeping quiet made me strong, that giving without strings was how I proved I mattered. Tonight, they proved I didn't. I sat back watching as a delivery van pulled up stacked high with catering trays. Another reminder that no one inside was starving for anything. I unlocked my phone fingers. "Steady now." My thumb hovered over Toby's name for just a second. Then I tapped. "Hey, Nadine," he answered on the second ring voice, warm and familiar. "Everything all right?" "No," I said calmly. "I need you to freeze every account that's tied to my name. Joint co-signed authorized everything." Now, there was a pause. Then, "You sure?" "I've never been more sure." He didn't question me after that, just started typing. As the call ended, I looked back at the hotel one last time. The celebration was still going. The music still soft and elegant. The people still laughing like nothing had cracked beneath the surface. But something had. I placed the untouched gift on the passenger seat, folded my hands in my lap and waited. I didn't know for what, only that something had just shifted in me. And this time, I wasn't letting it pass. It started small, like most disappearances do. A canceled movie night here, a rescheduled museum trip there. Jonas has soccer. He's got a group project. He's just so tired after school. At first, I believed it. I didn't want to be the clingy aunt. I told myself he'd call next week. I left voicemails, sent care packages. I waited. Fridays used to be hours. I'd pick him up. We'd split a cherry slush at that corner shop by the school. He'd tell me which dinosaur was the fastest, the scariest, the most misunderstood. That boy loved to talk until one day he didn't. Now I couldn't remember the last time I'd heard his voice without a buffer. Every call was rushed. Vivian hovering in the background. "Say hi to Auntie Nadine." Click. End of conversation. After the party, something gnawed at me louder than the silence between us. I logged into my online banking portal and began checking linked accounts. What started as curiosity turned into nausea. There were 3 credit cards I'd forgotten even existed, cards I'd opened years ago to help build Vivian's credit. All still active. All recently used. One had a $3,000 charge from a boutique hotel in Napa. Another showed monthly payments to a luxury gym. The third, a home decor retailer with prices high enough to make me blink twice. Then I found the loan. A personal line opened 2 years ago using my name as cosigner. $42,000 and climbing. It didn't make sense. I hadn't seen any of this. No alerts. No requests. But then I remembered the forwarded mail the time Vivian offered to handle the paperwork for Mom's insurance renewal, the way she insisted on helping me simplify my accounts. My generosity had been converted into collateral, my silence into access. She didn't just cut me out. She replaced me with a signature. I stared at the spreadsheet I'd started building, itemizing every transaction, every login I hadn't made. The numbers didn't lie and neither did the dates. My trust wasn't just misplaced. It had been monetized. I picked up my phone again. This time it wasn't Toby I needed to call. It was Claire. By morning I had 11 missed calls, 8 from Vivian, 2 from my mother, and 1 from a number I didn't recognize but could guess. I let everyone go to voicemail. My coffee had already gone cold by the time my phone rang again, and this time I picked up. "What the hell is wrong with you?" Vivian didn't wait for a greeting. Her voice was shrill, edged with panic. "Do you realize what you've done? You embarrassed me in front of everyone." My cards were declined. The caterer threatened to call the cops. I kept my tone flat. "Sounds like a memorable party." "Don't play coy, Nadine. This was Jonas's day and you ruined it." "I wasn't invited, remember," I said, standing at the kitchen counter. Apparently I'm not close enough family to stand in the same room, but I was close enough to bankroll it. Vivian went silent for a beat. "Then you've always been dramatic and you've always been entitled. You're going to destroy this family over money." "No," I said calmly. "You already did that when you started treating me like a credit line instead of a person." Another pause. "We needed help. You forged my name." "We didn't forge anything. I have bank records, Vivian. I have dates, signatures, charges, accounts. You used my identity to take out loans and open cards you never intended to pay off." She didn't deny it. I took a breath. "Now you know what it feels like to be erased." The line went dead. I didn't feel vindicated. Not yet. I wasn't after vengeance. I was after a that should have existed years ago. I reached for the folder I'd started the night before, the one filled with statements, screenshots, and emails. Then I pulled out the business card I hadn't used since Dad's first heart scare 5 years ago. Claire Devlin, Family Law. She picked up on the second ring. "Nadine, been a while. I need your help," I said. "How bad is it?" "87,000 and counting. And I want it back." Claire didn't gasp. She didn't offer sympathy. She just said, "Come in tomorrow. Bring everything." After I hung up, I returned to the table and slid the gift for Jonas back into the closet. Not because he didn't deserve it, but because the next time I gave him something, it was going to be on my terms. Claire didn't blink as she flipped through the folders, page after page, transaction after transaction, every signature, every login timestamp, every line of credit attached to my name but never touched by my hands. "She's good," Claire said flatly, tapping one of the forged authorization forms, "but not good enough. The handwriting doesn't match your legal signature. Not even close." She laid out a clean sheet of paper. "So here's what we do. Demand letter. Full restitution, principal and interest. Legal fees. Termination of all joint or co-signed financial ties. And something else." I looked up. "Visitation," Claire said. "With Jonas. We'll file for court-protected access if they try to block you again." I exhaled slowly. "That's all I want." "No," Claire said, looking me square in the eyes. "It's not all you want, but it's what you'll ask for. The rest will come." By the time I left her office, the letter was in motion. Certified mail signature required. Vivian wouldn't be able to pretend she hadn't received it. Later that evening I got the call I'd been expecting. Not from Vivian this time, but from my father. "Your mother's upset," he said, voice heavy with disappointment. "She thinks you're being unfair. She hasn't said a word to me. She's hurt. So am I." He sighed. "Families fight. It's not worth dragging lawyers into it. You could have just talked to Vivian." "I did," I said. She lied. He was quiet a long time. "Maybe you should have just let it go." I didn't flinch. "Not this time." "Let it go." "Like she did with my name, my money, my place in this family." "She's your sister." She used that word like a shield. I could hear him shift in his chair. "It's not too late to call it off. We'll figure something out as a family." "No, Dad. You had your chance to figure it out." He didn't say anything after that. Just a sigh, and then the line clicked. I stood there in the middle of my kitchen holding the phone like it might ring again. But it didn't, and I didn't expect it to. I sat back at the table, opened the folder one more time, and slid in the printed copy of the demand letter. This wasn't just paper. It was evidence that I finally believed myself. The house looked bigger than I remembered. Maybe it was the new landscaping or the freshly painted shutters. Or maybe it was just that now I could finally see how much of myself had been poured into a place I'd never been fully welcomed. I rang the doorbell once, then twice. The chime echoed like I was a visitor, not someone whose name was on the original loan. Vivian opened the door with a polished smile that cracked at the edges. Well, if it isn't the sheriff herself. I stepped inside without responding. The foyer smelled like citrus cleaner and expensive perfume. My parents were already seated in the living room, stiff on the couch like they didn't know which side they were supposed to be on. Margaret offered a half smile. Elliot wouldn't look at me. Vivian folded her arms. You didn't need to do all this. We could have talked. We tried that. You lied. So now I brought evidence. I laid the folder on the coffee table. Page 1, the forged authorization form. Page 2, the loan application you claimed I signed. Page 3 through 10, credit card statements you racked up on my name. Vivian glanced down, scoffed. You act like you're some kind of martyr. You gave that money willingly. No, I gave it under the belief I was helping my family. You turned that into a financing plan for your fantasy life. You weren't generous, she snapped. You were foolish. I met her eyes. No, I was family and you failed me. Elliot finally looked up, eyes clouded. Vivian, did you really use her credit? Vivian didn't answer. Margaret reached for her hand, but she pulled away. I took a breath and straightened the stack of papers. You can call me foolish. You can call me dramatic. But today you're going to call me done. You're going to ruin everything over some money. You already ruined it. I'm just putting my name back where it belongs. I turned to go. No one stopped me. Not even my mother. On my way out, I passed the family photo hanging by the front door. My face wasn't in it. They'd updated it last year. New outfits, new smiles, new frame. I hadn't noticed I was missing until now. I closed the door behind me without a word and drove straight to Claire's office. Vivian's lawyer opened with bluster, claims of emotional distress, character defamation, and irreparable harm to her family unit. Claire listened without interrupting, then calmly slid 2 folders across the table. These are credit applications using my client's name, forged signatures, and over $87,000 in unauthorized debt, she said. If you'd like to proceed with countersuit, we'll respond with charges of financial fraud, identity theft, and potential elder abuse. The silence on their side of the room was immediate. By the end of the week, the judge had issued orders freezing all remaining lines of credit Vivian had access to, including the ones she hadn't disclosed. Claire found them. She always did. The part no one expected was what came next. The court had requested a full financial assessment of Vivian's household to evaluate Jonas's stability. Receipts, statements, proof of expenses. Vivian submitted salon bills, a luxury spa membership, and a lease for a car that cost more than my entire annual salary. What she didn't provide was a single invoice for Jonas's school clothes or care. 3 days later, I got a call from the court-appointed evaluator. Temporary custody would be transferred to me until further review. Jonas arrived at my door with a small backpack and wide eyes. He didn't ask questions. He just walked in, kicked off his shoes, and opened the fridge like he used to. My parents came by that evening, not to help, to object. This is going too far, Margaret said, arms crossed at the threshold. Vivian's your sister. She's his mother, Elliot added. You're punishing a child to make a point. I stepped outside and closed the door behind me, keeping Jonas out of earshot. No, I said quietly. I'm protecting a child from someone who only sees him as an accessory. You think you're better than us now? Margaret asked, her voice cracking. No, I said. I think I finally see the difference between showing up and being visible. They didn't answer. I didn't invite them in. As they walked away, I looked back through the front window and saw Jonas on the couch, curled up with the old dinosaur blanket I'd saved from when he was little. He looked safe. The girl who used to beg to be included was gone, and in her place, someone new was beginning to build. We set up early 2 folding tables, a rented canopy, and a cooler full of juice boxes. Claire dropped off balloons. My neighbor brought extra lawn chairs, no catering vans, no champagne fountains, just peanut butter sandwiches shaped like dinosaurs and a homemade banner that read, Jonas turns 11. The kids didn't care that the cake was from a grocery store or that the party bags weren't monogrammed. They chased each other through the grass, sticky with frosting cheeks flushed from laughter. I sat on a picnic blanket watching it all unfold, feeling something settle in me, something solid. When Jonas finally opened his gift, his eyes went wide. The green one, he asked, holding up the exact helicopter he'd pointed to in a catalog months ago. You remembered? Of course I did. He threw his arms around me tight. This was the best birthday ever. I blinked hard, pressing my nose into his hair before he pulled away. Later, While we packed up the folding chairs, I noticed an envelope tucked into the gift bag I'd set aside, a check from Damon, signed with a note to help with party expenses. I stood there a moment, then slipped the check into my pocket unopened. That night I mailed it back. No note, just silence. Because this time it wasn't about proving anything. It wasn't about making anyone proud or being seen. It was about Jonas. And it was about building something that didn't need chandeliers or RSVPs to feel real. As I wiped icing from the picnic table and watched him chase bubbles with the other kids I knew. This wasn't the kind of birthday people bragged about on Instagram, but it was honest. This time it was built with truth. And for the first time in a long time, so was I. Claire hosted us in her office on a rainy Saturday morning. Just 4 women and a pot of lukewarm coffee. No drama, no press, no one taking notes, just space to breathe. Ruth had been financially drained by her adult son's business ventures. Elena had co-signed for a niece's education loan that turned into 3 credit cards and 2 eviction notices. We shared stories like stitching old seams slowly, carefully, without shame. I kept thinking if I gave enough, Ruth said they'd finally see me as more than what I gave. I nodded knowing that ache. But they didn't, Elena added, until I stopped giving. We weren't bitter. We weren't broken. We were just done being erased. Jonas now came every other weekend, legally guaranteed. He brought his favorite cereal and left socks in my dryer. We baked, we played cards, we didn't talk about his mother unless he brought her up. He rarely did. Vivian moved to Tennessee. She filed one last complaint, which the court denied, then disappeared into silence. Every few months I'd get a vague update, new apartment, new job, still bitter. That last part never changed. But today, I was barefoot in the yard, sipping tea while Jonas ran full speed across the grass, his laughter rising like it used to when he was small. We're not rebuilding the old version, I said aloud, mostly to myself. We're starting something better. Not perfect, not polished, but better. Because sometimes the you inherit isn't love, it's silence. And sometimes the most powerful legacy you leave is boundaries.